All right, Sinister Monopoly, welcome back.
Good to be back.
We're joined today by special guest Santa Muerta behind you, and it brings to mind something interesting. Quick highlight reel, Sinister served about, 7 years?
Almost 8, yeah.
Almost 8 years in federal prison for a massive marijuana conspiracy stretching from Canada to the Sinaloa cartel, and involved also the bringing in of the Jailhouse and sending that up to Canada. And you can check out some of Sinister's other interviews with me. But today we're going to get into really your prison time. We've talked about the case and some of the lifestyle things. So you're that stretch, that run you had, because it was so ahead of its time and so big, is kind of endlessly fascinating. But let's take it to the day you get sentenced. Let's take it to the day of when you finally agree to a plea and what that is and how you feel and what the process entering in. And then you ended up doing something a little different than most people when you got inside. So start us with the day you decided to take a plea.
Well, they brought me a numerous amounts of pleas, so I eventually took like the third one.
What was the first one?
Oh, it was like some crazy amount of, like, there was all of a sudden, it went from like 200 pounds to like 1,800 pounds. And then they started adding like some yayo to it. And I just like pushed that back and said, I'm here for cannabis. I'm not signing anything with blow on there. And then they came back and had added like money laundering. And then,
so they were adding charges.
Yeah. Every time I would like push one back.
You think they were trying to like punish you for rejecting the plea?
I mean, it to some degree, definitely, right? And so then I eventually, which I kept even like bucking on this. So they kept saying it has to be, 10 years to life. And I didn't really like that term life being on there. And I was like, why doesn't it say 10 to 30, 10 to 20? What is with like life? Like, do you have to take that off? And they just basically came back and said that's part of the court like document verbiage that's like standard. But so at the end of the day, I ended up signing 10 to life.
Oh, you did have to take a 10 to life.
And then one of the things that really weighed heavy on me was not long after you do that, they send what's called a pre-sentencing report. And somebody comes, it's called a PSI or PSR or some shit. Anyhow, someone will come and they'll just interview and they'll ask questions about your background. How many siblings you have? Where did you go to school? And you have to like tell them, your background, right? And you're not like talking about your case. They just want to know, like, because they're making a recommendation to the judge, right? So I'm in there and I thought, I'm yes sir, no sir, being really polite to the dude. Well, like 2 weeks later, that report comes back. My lawyer comes in and says, so the court is recommending 30 years for my sentence.
30 years?
Correct.
Whoa, based on what? The volume of the...
They just kept like, as I was in there waiting to go to get sentenced, they were just still digging up evidence and finding more, and it was still active,
And it was all real, I mean...
For sure.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, thankfully, at the end of the day, they would always say, like, the most lenient judge in my district. And one of the good things was...
Oh, so let's go back, just so people understand, because even for me, 10 to life, in the feds, you don't get an indeterminate sentence. You get an actual number of years. So 10 to life is the range that they could sentence you to.
Correct.
So you go in front of the judge...
Not under 10.
But he could give you up to life. You could get 30 years.
Or life.
Wow. So that's not much of a plea.
Right? And I was reading books and I was like, no, I'm supposed to get something for not going to trial. Like, this is a barter fucking thing. Like, I get something because I'm copping a plea, and they just kept saying, like, basically, you're screwed. No, you don't get anything. You know what I'm saying?
Because in the BMF, they did a thing that said 20 to 30, and Meach was like, oh, we'll get 20, I'll be out in 15. And they got 30.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so they could have given you life. So this PSR recommends 30 years.
So was the Big Meech, was that a trial?
No, plea.
That was a plea?
Yeah. But theirs was 20 to 30. Yours was 10 to life.
I see.
So they got the life out of their plea, but it was a bigger range, but they got the high end of the range.
Yeah.
So people do get the high end of the range, so you could have got 30 years.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had when you were selling cannabis, you probably had no fathoming of this goes south. You didn't even think you'd be eligible for that type of time.
Part of the reason why I ended up not getting as much as what the court recommended was the feds go by like a numerical point system for each crime. Money laundering, you have a standard, which is the drugs, and it might fall at, they call like level 32. And then they add things like money laundering's 2 more points. Being the leaders, 5 points, sometimes not maybe as much. And then having a gun is another 4 points. So they give you, I forget the legal term for it at the moment, but all these additional points, right? So the day of my sentencing, my judge was...
Enhancements.
Enhancements, yeah, that's the 2-point enhancement, 3-point enhancement. And at the end of the day, those really add up to a lot of years. So I started at level 32. And if you start going, 2 more and 3 more, and now you're at level 38, 40, you end up in those Meech categories. So one thing they tried to pin on me was, I kind of had stash houses, but I remained unconnected to them. But other people had them, right? And one dude, he had a gun in one of the stash houses. And they said that because I'm the boss of him, that gun is part of a crime that implements me.
That's scary. And that held up? That's valid?
No, the judge said,
okay.
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
Because we even said, I don't even know where the dude lived.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah, he held my product.
But I didn't direct him to have a gun.
Right.
How many people told on you?
Probably
a lot.
Close to 30, 25.
Not everybody, but almost everybody.
So as I would have lawyer visits and I was like, yeah, I'm going to trial, and I knew nothing about the feds. You're still green in like the first couple visits, and then they just knock you down. And then so my lawyer would bring like a laptop and play audio. And one time he had a video, and this kid had like a camera on, and he jumped in and...
Come on, with you, it's a surveillance video.
Yeah, but I wasn't in the video. I was in another state, but I was on Boost Mobile with him and the agents in the car, and I told him where to pick something up. I would clicked on it. Oh, go to Best Buy. The keys are under the floorboard. And they said, oh, this guy so-and-so is using all this against you. And they started he would play me those things. And then he would give me emails from the prosecutors in other states and say, oh, so-and-so is actively, cooperating against myself, And at one point, the lawyer said, you'll never win at a trial because they're going to bring in a basketball team or something. He's like, it'll be one after another. And, you'll never win, And I didn't understand that in the beginning. I'm like, yeah, they didn't catch me with anything. Because the day I was caught, I just had cash. I didn't have product, right?
Just from watching movies or knowing people, you didn't know about conspiracy or... Not really.
No.
Well, ignorance is no defense, as you found out.
When I was doing what I was doing, I always kind of thought, oh, I'll just go to LA County Jail, and they're overcrowded, and they'll kick me out, and you know what I mean? I didn't really think.
So you had a total misconception.
Absolutely.
That's scary. So for anyone watching this, don't assume you think you know what the punishment for your crime is. I mean, federally, I'm sure you met guys like this. If you've had one violent crime and you just get caught with a gun, they can career armed offender you and give you 15 years just for that if they want to play hardball.
For sure. Yep.
So you take this 10 to life, and then what? They recommend 30. Were you freaking out?
Oh, yeah. I could no longer sleep. I was straight up insomniac. I would listen to top radio all night long, and then during the day I would be like still just like super tired. I was in Atlanta in a what's called like a pod, you know, and that just weighed. I feel like I just got so much like stress from that, you know what I mean? And I told my lawyer, like, this is like a murder case. Like, you got to be kidding me. The recommendation is 30 years. You know what I mean? And it boggled my mind.
Fuck. Do you think, so we've discussed in other videos, and we if someone wants to know, they can go watch it. You did involve with a lot of cocaine, but they weren't really able to charge you with it. Do you think they knew about it but couldn't charge you, and that's why they wanted to give you that much time? Because it couldn't have been for the weed.
In the beginning, the day I was arrested and went to try to get bail, my charge was like literally like 230 pounds.
Which is not
super
that
small.
big of a deal, right?
A couple 100 pounds.
But they wouldn't give you bail.
No, right, they wouldn't give me bail. And then all of a sudden it was like, 1,800, and maybe now we're talking 14,000 pounds, and maybe we're talking, because I went back to do a bond appeal, and the government came up and started saying, well, we're still going through all the evidence, and we believe there's cocaine involved. And when they said that word at my bail hearing, it like rang out like nothing, like you could drop a needle in the room sort of thing, you know? And I was like, wow, they just mentioned that, you know? And
because you may have had once or twice like 300 to 500 kilos in a month pass through your hands.
Of course, right.
So that's definitely 30 years.
One thing that was like really kind of like somewhat off topic, but I still tried to make sure it would get removed from all my papers, was one of the strains of herb that I was sending was called green crack.
Oh.
And it was all over my paperwork talking about green crack. And then it started saying it was a mixture of weed and crack.
Oh, no.
It was like, definitely time out.
That's
like,
scary.
I was like, I said to my lawyer, we got to get this word crack out of my fucking paper.
I remember when green crack came out, I'm not much of a weed smoker, and I smoked some. It's just funny, I remember this. A very little bit. And I think we were somewhere around Venice or Redondo, Hermosa.
It was from this area.
Okay, and we went to get something to eat, and like I said, I don't smoke weed, and some police came in just to eat where we were at, and I got all paranoid.
Well,
but it was legal. It wasn't like a big deal, but I remember green crack from that.
Yeah.
So cocaine is mentioned, so you get the 30-year thing, you're paranoid, and when do you find out you're not going to get 30 years?
It took maybe like another 9 months after the pre-sentencing.
Oh, that had to be torture.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Was that like probably the worst part of your whole time?
It was, and then, you know, even the guards would come in, and like it was a form of like abuse, it felt like, you know, like let's say, so you're in these tiny cells and you just have little times to shower per day. But these particular guards where I was being housed, I don't know if they were trying to figure out, because I wouldn't really use my own personal phone. You know, you use like a pay phone or you call collect. Well, I wasn't using mine. If you were an inmate, I'd be like, hey, Al, let me use yours. I'll give you commissary. I don't want them to hear what I'm going to say. And so I don't know if other inmates could possibly narc on me but anyway, so the guards were raiding my room 2 or 3 times every shift, sometimes like a whole week straight.
Every day.
Yeah, and nobody else's room. So finally I started writing it down, and like one time like another guard came in, it was like a sergeant or some shit, and I go, hey man, let me ask you something, like, why is it my room is being raided every day? Well, I don't know nothing about it. And I was like, well, really? Because it's every single day. And they just come from there right to my room. And then, you know what I mean? And then at one point, I think
Feds wanted more information on you.
Right. Remember, we discussed off camera before that a dude came in for contempt of court.
Oh, jailhouse snitch.
Yeah. And in Atlanta, all the inmates would use this like slang, and it says, don't talk about your case. Everyone's going to jump on your case. Jump on your case. There was a dude in there that eventually ended up like on the newspaper, because he was getting people's information and selling it
to the feds.
people. No, for if you were an inmate, I got something you could cooperate on, give me fucking money and I'll tell you all about it. And he was like writing up other people's.
So wait a second. So just to be clear, so he would say, I was in Joe Blow's cell. He revealed this information about this murder.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what color shirt he had on and where the murder weapon is for $5,000, so you can lie and say you know.
Yeah.
Oh wow! But
It was on some Atlanta fucking real shit. We packed out one day, and then next thing you know, it was like all in the news, and it was like he was straight up on the news. It was fucking the weirdest. Yeah. So that happens a lot. And one of the things that happened on mine, where people would say, you know, does the government send people in to, you know, maybe what do you call it? Infiltrate, go undercover, that sort of thing. So a dude comes in and he's like maybe 6 foot something, extremely tall dude, extra white, like conservative looking, like a stockbroker, lawyer.
but
like,
big enough to
no
be able to handle
tattoos.
himself.
yeah, no tattoos, no sort of like gang type of individual.
Wasn't a drug addict.
Yeah,
Didn't fit in.
very square. And
Everywhere is everyone where you're at
In
looking at
Atlanta,
long
mostly
time,
black.
and are they looking at?
yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Okay.
In my pod, I was like maybe 1 or 2 whites.
And everyone was looking at long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have a guy in there for one day.
Yeah, he comes in and I was like, what are you know, my cellmate, what are you here for? Oh, I said something at the end of my fucking thing and some law, I don't know. And he said contempt of court. I'm just here for 24 hours. And I was like, what? Like, that's some trippy stuff, right? And I remember going to get like our food, we call it chow, right? And people were screaming out like, hey, what's up with your new bunkie, bro? Like straight calling him out like fucking 5-0. I forget what they said in the moment, but they were clowning, right? And I was like, no shit. So of course, wouldn't you know it, when someone becomes like a bunkie or a cellmate for the first night, the first couple nights, you sometimes will stay up and just shoot the shit. Like, oh, where are you from?
Someone new to talk because you've been
Yeah.
bored and yeah.
Exactly. So this dude was like, do you have any money left from all this? And like asking me questions that totally were suspect. You know? So, and he wasn't the only one. You know, I did have other things like that, you know? But really quick too, on as far as like when they were raiding the rooms, and it's like a form of
Because they could,
intensifying the punishment.
right? Because what could you be getting if they just searched it yesterday? What could you?
So here's the thing. So maybe we're only allowed like one uniform and one pair of shorts. I would go around and be like, hit up the laundry guy, like, hey man, let me get fucking an extra pair, you know, and grab other, you know, things. And then I started getting inmates to like cut up clothes and make me rosary beads. And I was like sending them home. They would come in and like, oh, you can't have, and I was like, damn, you guys are like the devil. He's taking rosary beads. And they would always take things from you. It's like, it's a weird thing. Like you can't have any.
Oh, I experienced it even in the county jail. Like we were outside in the cold and we'd have multiple thermals.
Yeah.
Oh, and they know we need them.
And that's the other thing. Oh, you want an extra blanket? I'll get an extra blanket or an extra pillow.
Something you actually need.
Yeah, right. It could be freezing, which Atlanta at one point it was, and they would always just take and leave you with just the bones. Which
And once you're uncomfortable because you're quicker, they always say they make the county jail or the federal holding, whatever, uncomfortable, so you're more willing to take a plea and like, just get me out of here and I want to go to prison.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you go for sentencing, and had you already found out you weren't going to get the full 30, or you didn't know?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, wow. So when you go in front of that judge,
Even the day of, in the here in Atlanta, they keep you in like the basement, and it's kind of a high rise, and then they take you up on the elevator to go into a courtroom. And so my lawyer came down, and he's down here, and he starts to show me what the court refers to as ledgers, where they're handwritten, and they've been taken from my house.
it's the day of sentencing.
Yeah. And he goes, and they were numerical money numbers. Like, oh, this guy owes me X amount of thousand. Okay. So now they took a number that was regards to cash, not regards to product. And they reversed it. And they said this number, he's talking about product. So now instead of being like on the hook for like 1,800 pounds, he goes, they're going into this right now. And it's not in my plea agreement. It's another like, they're just.
So even if you sign a plea, they continue the investigation. Is that common for them to do, or you don't know?
So check it out. And I'm looking at this is the very first time I get to look at this ledger. And I'm telling them, that is not pounds right there. That's like somebody. And so they came and said, it's 14,000. From 1,800 is what I signed.
So 10 times the amount.
Yeah. Now they're trying for 14,000. And like, thank God, that was like the very first thing the judge said. He goes, yeah, I'm not going with this 14, 12, boom, we're going with the 1,800. Now what? He basically, like, that was the kick it off, like, nah, which.
So they added it the last day.
Yeah, like an hour before.
And, wow, that's not right. Like, they have to give you.
Yeah.
But that's surprising that it's scary that after you took a plea, when you think, okay, it's over with, they're still investigating.
Yeah. And then I don't know if it was even in the plea. It's hard for me to remember, but they did come back and say that I owed restitution. And they were saying, I think it was like 5 or 7 million, you know? And then at that point, if people really logically think about restitution, then it would mean I'm selling drugs for the government. You know what I mean?
No, 100%.
They want their check. Because I didn't take from someone where now I owe them back.
Right.
It was a product that's gone.
No, 100%. You're correct. So you stand up and he says, I'm about to pronounce sentence. How are you feeling?
Well, I had, like my family went up and I wrote a speech and I tried my best to bring the tears out, you know, and at one point, you know, he even said, you know, you had an opportunity to quit while you were ahead and you didn't, and you kept going. But one thing that worked out for good for me as far as the 30 years was they threw out the gun charge. Then they said, oh, we believe he's the leader. And he did give me the leader, but he only did like half the points. Like, I think they wanted 5, and he's like, I'll do 2, you know? And so with all those and just my regular thing, I ended up getting 11 and a half. And in the moment, like, I kind of like psychologically, you know, already accepted it. But I remember like going back to, after transporting back to the facility, the intake guards were like, hey, do you want to go to solitary? Like I was going to go cry or something, you know? And I was like, I'm good. Just send me back to population, you know? And
well, you had to be, I mean, I'm sure you weren't happy to get 11 and a half, but I mean, realistically, it had to be a relief.
Yeah, because in comparison to like all these, during the process,
and not knowing is scary.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. During the process, it went from a couple, and then it went to more, and then these fastballs and curveballs, and the government is sketchy. And I feel like, okay, yeah, maybe I did do things on a large scale, but I do feel they inflate, or what's the word, like
inflate is right. That's the word.
Or
exaggerate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
How much pressure did they just simply did they ask you to tell on anybody in particular, but you were the guy?
Right. So the way that way was like on the way back inside the car, there was an agent sitting in the.
Oh, when you first got arrested.
Yeah. And he was like, no one knows yet. You know, you can help yourself. And I kind of just sat there with like almost like my head just, you know, sombered down. And a couple times I threw in like negative interjections, like, yeah, like he would say something like, oh, remember that time you were in Detroit and you got the flu? And I bet that was, and I was like throwing things, and I wouldn't really even talk to him back. And then I would say something back, and then he would antagonize me with what I just said, you know, and come back at it. And so then once I was going to get like, I guess mugshot, and they swab your mouth, there's this little process, and I'm in the room and I could see through into another door, and he already had taken my Rolex and some other things, and he's over there like just barking off, how much was the Rolex? And I'm not really saying anything, right? And they refer back to someone else on my case that was arrested before me, and they're like, oh, so and so was in here. He was sick to his stomach. He was crying. Oh man, yeah. And then and they're just like laying it on thick, you know. And every once in a while, and then at one point they were like, "Do you want some Chick-fil-A? We want some hamburgers."
So it was all the typical things we see in a TV show.
Absolutely, man.
If you were a younger, less sophisticated, kind of weaker person, I mean, could you see how a lot of people do break? Or not really?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with myself, I had, even if I didn't think I was going to be a federal thing, and it didn't even.
Or you didn't think you were in that much
know
trouble.
what the feds were when I was actively doing what I was doing. I kind of thought, oh, you know, I work with this motorcycle club. You know, I watch these movies and I'm gonna, you know, stay solid and at the end of the day, it's like so many people in our world, they talk like this, but they all fucking just buckle, you know?
If not trying to get you to say that you would have informed, but like, I imagine it would have been a lot more difficult of a decision to make if I'd have interacted with the feds. If you could see the future and know you were going to have a 30-year pre-sentence report, still wouldn't.
Even then, I just feel like those guys, okay, well, they're on the legal side, right? But even with the exaggeration and all that, they seem to me like so fraudulent. And like you can't even trust them.
Oh, to even do a deal like it's,
right? You know what I mean? Like,
well, you took a 10 to life and they're still investigating.
Yeah.
So you go back to your cell, you got an 11 and a half. Well, was Atlanta holding, was that a rough, was it just physically uncomfortable? Do you have any altercations?
I never had any altercations.
Or did other people have altercations?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Something, you know, you watch these prison channels and they, you know, everyone's fighting and this and that, but there's a lot of people in jail with bad personalities and they're
mental health, yeah.
And just don't know how to talk to people. But like, there's also people in maximum security who have pretty minimal arguments and fighting, right?
Like myself, you know, I know how to navigate. I'm like a chameleon, right? And so I don't get into issues like that. You know, at one time I think I was playing Monopoly.
Well, we'll fast forward. In Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the good fights in Atlanta was it was almost like a third world, this particular holding facility. It was called
was it Rice Street or something?
I don't think it was called I don't think this one was Lovejoy was one of them, but I'll have to figure out what it was called again. It might have been that. So, but anyways, there's like a smaller dude, and there's only a certain time that you could take a shower, and there's like maybe 30 units up and down, 2 stories, like 2 little showers, and they come on at like 6 o'clock till 7:30, and people start to throw their towel up to be like, I got first, right? And so I guess a smaller stature dude felt intimidated by someone like, hey, hurry up, I got next or whatever. So they got into some sort of like shower thing, and that would happen, you know, if you shower too long, you're in there like 20 minutes, or like, dude, get on already. Anyways, so he heard that the youngster, the smaller statue dude, had got a knife and was planning on like using it.
Just out of fear.
Yeah. And he told another inmate that. So that inmate goes to like the large, big stature buff dude and goes, oh, yo, little guy over here's got a knife, bro. He's going to get you. What? Right? So then what do? They lure the young kid into a cell. And in this particular cell, you could really get effed up, because here's what they do. There's a guard shed outside of the pod, and you can lock the door, and your cell door is locked. And in order to get out, you have to hit a button on an intercom and say, hey, man, open the door. Other than that, like if it's, you could like rec time and you could go out, your door could still be locked or certain hours. So anyways, they lured him in, and he was literally like the cell below me. I was the upstairs and he was downstairs, and all you could hear was these gnarly thuds, boom, 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 like thuds, like the thing. And this guy, he knocked the teeth out of the kid, bro. They found the teeth. And the dude eventually came back from the shoe or whatever, and he had like full arm brace on because he laid into the kid's face so bad.
Damn. And did the kid come, or he was messed
didn't
up?
come back.
How old was he?
He was pretty young.
What was he in there for? You don't know.
I don't know. But this
So mostly drug stuff in there?
So this particular first pod that they dropped me in was also very suspect because originally it was for state inmates. There was only like one or two or a handful, but it was mixed. And so most of the people, when they had court dates, they would be on the news that day.
Oh, it was high profile cases.
I believe that's probably you know?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So a lot of murder,
Exactly, yeah.
gang murder.
Yep.
How was mostly everybody young?
Kind of. There was two dudes in there on the same case, and there was like gossip back and forth that they were cooperating against it. And they had an interesting case. They were doing armored truck robberies, and they did like 5 or 7, and then they ended up murking a guard.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's where it really went sour for them, you know?
And what happened to that?
I don't know. One of them would be around at the TV and talking, going, ah, man, I'm only going to get 7. And I was like, fuck, not from what I'm like. You guys murked the guard?
Hey, you're getting that L.
You know, and he would tell stories like, oh, man, I'll be back in the living room. I just hit the lick, and we were counting up 60. And like,
How old are they?
They were pretty young. He looked like Lil Wayne, one dude, just all dreadlocked down.
Were they dumb? Or
They were like what I would call like Atlanta Cowboys. You know, like
just didn't have...
Jack boys. There's a lot of like, they call them finessers.
Well, if you're killing guards, you're beyond finessing. But yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Atlanta has a lot of people that they steal amongst their underground communities.
because there's a lot of that's a hub city for drugs.
Sure, yeah.
So there's a lot of hitting licks on criminals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So how long did you stay there before you got shipped out to federal custody?
It was
After sentencing.
It was so weird. Once I signed a plea agreement, they picked me up from that place and took me to like the normal federal holding place.
Which was more comfortable.
Yeah.
So for the 9 months that you thought you might get 30, you were at this federal.
No. So before I signed a plea agreement, it might have even been like 10 months before the plea agreement.
Oh.
Once I signed my name, then it was like a few more months. They set my court date, and then the prosecutor got pregnant, and then they fucking...
So how it was like 15, 16 months from arrest to sentencing?
Almost 19.
Oh, so you're in there for almost 2 years. Oh, that's very uncomfortable. So how long after his actual sentencing did you hit the chain to the joint?
It was fast.
Week
Some
or
people,
two?
they say, oh, you're going to get you in 30 days. But in like, I don't know, less than like, feel like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Maybe because I was just going, I started at the Atlanta penitentiary. They refer to it as the castle.
That's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, normally when they call it, you pack you out or you got to roll up to like go to the next destination. The guards tell you, pack it up. They don't tell you where you're going. But I was in the hallway, like taking off, like getting, searched and shit. And the guard's like, hey, man, are you ready? You know where you're going? I was like, no. And he ends up telling me, you're going to the penitentiary. We're taking you to the castle. And I was like, oh, man, like I didn't even really want to know that, really. I just take me somewhere.
Had you heard of that?
Well, I mean, as soon as he says penitentiary, and it's...
So at this point, you kind of know about the difference between penitentiaries, FCIs,
I learned.
camps.
And then my lawyer said the day of sentencing, we already picked a place. And he said, I want to ask the judge if you can go to where your family is.
Which would be Terminal Island or Lompoc or something.
So that's what I did at sentencing. My lawyer got up and said we would request that he goes to Terminal Island. Yeah.
So you go to Atlanta, but was that just a transfer station?
Transfer thing, yeah.
That's pretty awful.
Oh, it's 23-1.
And it's old and run down. And
Yeah.
now you didn't go into the general population because you were a transfer inmate.
Yeah.
But that's very violent. They said that's an awful place.
Yeah, like mice run into the cell. That one night it was pure torture. Like they said it was like dead winter and the heating didn't work. And like you literally get your one little blanket and it was freezing, dude.
Yeah, they said Atlanta is bad. How long did you have to stay there? Not long.
maybe almost, I want to say 3 months.
Oh, that's long enough. So that was very miserable.
Yeah, and then you're only let out, like you said, 23 and 1 is you had to run to use the phone. Like everyone, oh, it's time, and you got to wait in a big ass line.
But you guys are separated from the people serving a time at Atlanta.
Right. Unless you go to like medical and shit. Like I was in medical and a dude came in and had a pencil in his neck. And they locked us all down, you know, for an emergency.
What was the demographic there?
For my experience, mostly black.
Okay. And did it seem...
When I transferred, I had this trippy dude. He was so strange. He was there for tax evasion, or he didn't believe in tax, period. And he was doing seminars on how not to, and the laws that tell you not to, and so they probably just hit him up like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then so he would always talk about the Illuminati, and he was...
White guy?
Yeah.
How much time did he have? We don't know.
Man, I forget, but he was old, and I want to say it was like 3 or 8, somewhere in there, you know? But he was so annoying, dude. He was collect all the milk cartons from a thing and make things like, oh, put your toothbrush in here. Put your pencil in here. And there was like all these freaking milk cartons and stuff. And then when he would use the restroom to go number 2, you have to sit there and be right there in the room. And he didn't know how to courtesy flush. And I was like, yo, bro, you got to flush the toilet. You're going to get fucked up. Like, cut it out. You know what I mean? Don't sit here and fucking think you're going to... Because I would maybe throw the blanket over my head while the dude takes it, you know, uses the bathroom. And then you're like, it fucking stinks to high, you know?
It's such a dehumanizing experience.
It is.
So you get transferred to Terminal Island.
Mm-hmm.
So were you, at this point, you got a couple, let's see, so you got 2 years in, so you're...
Just about.
Yeah, so you're knocking down the time. Did you have to take Con Air there?
I did, yeah.
What was that like?
It was interesting. You get, you know, your brown sack lunch, and then you get cuffed up in the...
Oh, you were in the box.
No, I didn't have a box.
Oh, okay. Some people have a box.
Yeah, some people that for various reasons, they're high profile or they're...
High risk.
Yeah, high risk. But you get a little bit of leeway, you know? And then you get...
What about going to the bathroom?
You just have to ask somewhere around the line. But there was a big chain gang. It was a big plane.
Like a 740, like...
And we did a layover. Like, we went from Atlanta, and then we picked up in Miami, and then we went to, I want to say, like, Ohio or Oklahoma
yeah,
City.
That's a big transfer.
And so it was pretty trippy. So you fly into, like, this massive airport, and, you know, sometimes when you get off, like, a regular vacation plane or you're going somewhere, and you have these long tunnels to get to the, you know,
concourse.
Whatever, right? Dude, they had the same thing, but it was like inmates just lined up. And instead of like a concourse to get your luggage, just prisons. And you're like,
oh, vans.
Boom.
Oh,
no,
wow.
just there was pods.
Oh.
On an airport.
Oh, like holding pods.
Yeah. So you fly in a 747, boom, you get right off, and you're just in the thing, you know, like a straight up dispatching, you know. And everyone, most of the time, is like there for 2 nights or a night or whatever.
You spend a night at the airport.
A holdover.
So you spent a night at the airport in one of these little wow.
Holdover.
And did you start to get a sense at that point you're traveling of like...
I went to like, if I counted, maybe 7 places.
Did you get the sense of like, wow, there's a lot of people in federal prison, and you start seeing different kinds. So you're seeing mostly black inmates in Georgia, but as you're moving... Right. Now you're seeing Did it start to die?
Like in Oklahoma, a dude hit me up and he thought I was like a different race than white. He was like, "Oh, are you like Persian or?" I forget what it was, but he thought I was like a foreigner, you know.
And what was gonna happen? Like,
no, I think it was because maybe it was a cellmate or we were just in the.
Okay, pod. When did that whole racial? When did you get acquainted with the racial thing?
Racial doesn't necessarily come in the feds until you land in prison, as opposed to like pre-sentencing or holding facilities. But you do sometimes with the pre-sentencing, you don't necessarily bunk with other races, but they do.
And Georgia, well, it probably is different. On the West Coast, it's more pronounced.
Yeah.
East Coast is probably less.
Yeah.
Less of that.
So I had inmates that were cellmates that were black in Atlanta, and then some cellmates that would come in Atlanta would be like, "Hey, this guy, get him out." Tell the guard, not me get him out. But I did see kicking races out, like, get this dude.
Wow.
But when you get to prison...
And the guards would honor that.
I forget in the moment, but I remember that was a dude, and I remember on the top floor, he was yelling off the balcony and shit. And at the end of the day, I don't know what entirely happened, but when you arrive to, serve out your term, that's when it becomes completely isolated per race. Like you're only going to be in a cell bunk or whatever. Your cellmate will only be your race. Yeah.
So when you get to Terminal Island, did you know that was going to happen? You've been hearing about it a little
bit, but not
you didn't know
entirely.
to the extent.
Because in Atlanta, there was a mixture, and I didn't...
And there weren't enough whites to really even be a group.
Yeah, you didn't necessarily see it like how it was like 0 to 100, and there's no other way.
So you though didn't you decided you had many you ended up being with under the whatever the Southside car or what do you want to call it, like what was that process?
Well, I guess I could even just go back to even like the first day.
Yeah, the beginning.
When I landed there. So almost every week, sometimes every other week, they call it, the bus brings in, they call them new fish. And so, like, new fish is maybe like 20 dudes just came in on the bus. And they have these different housing units. And at Terminal Island, they're alphabetical. And there could be like E unit, F unit, J unit. So I went to J unit. And as I'm there, and I'm in like you could see by my clothes, they don't give me standard issue of the facility. I'm in transportation clothing. So you automatically know if you're there, an inmate, you can tell I just got here an hour ago. So this white dude comes up and he's blonde hair, blue eyes, and what's up, brother? Like the
stereotypical.
Yeah, I'll throw the accent. And it was cool in a way because he was actually a Canadian citizen.
And your case was with Canadians.
Instantly, he started saying, how many whites are on the bus? And I was like, I don't know, I think there's...
Wow, that was his first question.
First question, how many whites are on the bus?
How many, what do you remember? Or like?
Yeah, it was a small number. It was like maybe only 12 of us came in that day.
So 2 or 3 whites?
Yeah, like 2 or 3, Yeah.
So then what?
So then he was like, what are you here for? And I told him, and I said Canadian. He started, and I don't know if it was in the moment. I almost want to say in the moment. He goes, who did you know up there? And I started dropping names, and he goes, what? I know him, and I know him, and we happen to like start knowing.
Well, at that high level of criminality, there's only so many people, right?
And it was a trip because he's by no means an American. He was a total Canadian.
And what was he in for?
Transporting across the border.
Oh, so
as a big rig.
Oh, same.
He was a driver.
Same kind of world that you were in. Oh,
yeah.
And was he? So what white group was he a part of?
So in prison, the different races go by.
Because it's not just races. Because each race has different. There's white independent, and there's all.
Yeah, no. So there's as far as the whites go, you start with independent.
And is that the biggest, or?
For the most part, yep. Yeah, and what that means is you're not going to participate with these other whites that are more like drug individuals than white collar, right? And they're called woods.
Oh, that's what you would separate the independents from the woods. The woods are more the druggy people?
The woods are absolutely more drugs.
Oh. So the independents...
Gang members and, independents more of a stockbroker guy.
Or you.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about if I'm just some white
there's
guy from Ohio?
There's a third thing for the whites, which is normally like a no good dude. and he's like an SA or something like that, you know, or they call them the Christians. And they even had like
They're like one step.
Shomos even had their own fucking thing.
Because there's enough of them.
Yeah. So there's the sex offenders, there's the Christians, there's the independents, and the Woods.
What about the white power thing?
That would be considered a Wood.
Oh, I thought the white supreme, aren't there like skinheads that are separate from the Woods?
No. A Wood is in that category.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
A Wood is universal, and there's no really like, if you're a Crip and a Blood, you're gonna get along because you're serving under that umbrella.
Oh, black.
Yeah, it's an umbrella.
Okay. Yep. So, did they wanted to see your paperwork, all that stuff we hear about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, the one dude is like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Chow. Oh, I'll take you with me. I'll introduce you, and you sit with me, And then I do all that, and I sit there, and then so his cell is like further from my area in the housing unit, and there was another guy in my housing unit, and he hit me up, and I didn't know in the moment he was like an independent, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll show you around. I'll take you to the South Yard," and and it come to find out that he was one of the fucking gays on the yard. He didn't initially, but he eventually, and they would always be like suspect, and I didn't know, like it's been there an hour, and some guy's like, "I'll show you around," and he looks like an all right guy, and then even there's like the Christians, and they're they're the Bibles all the time, all day, every day. They're a Bible studying in the corner. They're reading the Bible.
Is that kind of like the deal, like, okay, you'll be left alone, but you have to play this game all day?
Well, some of the sex offenders are into the Bible. They use that as a cover-up.
That's yeah. It's like you.
So I remember being in like it's like a dorm setting where there's just multiple bunks, and I'm on the top, and I could see bunks for quite some ways, and people have their like little curtains up, like put shit so you can't see, and the Bible thumper pulls me over. "Hey, you just got here?" I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Yeah, and he goes, "You don't have to be a Wood."
Even they tried to recruit you.
Exactly. Everyone's like, "Oh, there's a new dude here," and even they'll sometimes do like a bag of goods, like, "Oh, here's some shower shoes, here's a fucking razor," because you're not always able to go at Commissary maybe till the next day, and so you land, you don't really have much of belongings,
Yeah.
and so
what's the social structure on the yard? Like, what's the ratio of people? What's the vibes? What's going on?
So this particular prison, it held 1,200 inmates, and
this is a FCI.
Mm-hmm, yep. And the moment
how close were you to starting at a USP points wise, or you weren't?
I'm not sure, honestly. Maybe because of my age, or why I was able to go to Terminal Island. Maybe
they got rid of the gun.
Maybe by putting me even in a transfer of Atlanta, maybe that even like, I don't know if that lowers your custody thing.
Oh no, you might not have enough points. I mean, 11 and a half with no violence. Yeah. You can probably go to FC. Oh, I mean, you did, so.
Yeah. It was a medical yard, so they had some high profile people that maybe wouldn't be there if it weren't for medical.
Mm.
One dude who was really cool, he was from the Gemini twins story, one of the five.
Roy DeMeo.
Yeah, and
Murder for Hire Gambinos.
Yeah.
What was he like?
Oh, he was Italian through and through.
Meaning?
He just had that swagger.
But he was older.
Yeah, he was like a senior citizen. He had already done like 20 or 30 years. He'd been locked up for quite some time. And when we were there, he had throat cancer. And I think he had like a double life or something. He recently let out. Mm-hmm. He's out now. You could probably try to get him on your thing.
Mm-hmm. Was there tension there? Was it pretty smooth running, or what was going on?
There's only tension if you're a weirdo and you don't know how to like carry yourself, or you're in there. You could get any drug you want in there. And a lot of people, when you're on drugs, you're a different person. You got people in there like borrowing drugs on front and then maybe not paying it, or just being like straight weirdos and tweakers, and so their personalities are off. And and that's how you end up like hearing that we called it like TMZ of the yard, like, oh, so-and-so fucking's been doing speed for 2 days and he just ran across the yard fucking all paranoid, and they locked him up, put him in the shoe because he was on a sick one. And you fucking, you know what I mean?
I can see wanting to smoke weed or do an opiate in jail, but like, what do you do on speed in
One
jail?
dude came in, I was in the hobby shop, and that's a general population area, and people would come to hang out with me while I painted. One dude came in and he was like, oh man, I got some LSD. I'm frying right now. And I was like, why would you want to fry in prison? Like, I really don't even get that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not something that I would even want to do,
So when do you get with the Hispanic inmates and go under the Southside kind of banner? Were they the biggest group there?
Possibly.
Who else would have been? The whites?
The blacks had a lot, and the Pisces had probably more.
Oh, the Pais. Oh, because in federal prison, a lot of those Paises are for just immigration stuff, right?
Maybe not, but they're not like gangs.
Are they smugglers or?
Yeah.
Aren't there people in there who just got caught crossing the border too many times?
A few.
Oh, not that many.
Predominant.
Oh, okay.
These are the guys that could have even brought keys across, and they're a mule, but all they know is they're not from California. They're not from, San Diego. They're from like Guadalajara or some shit.
So Pisces were the biggest group. Were they cohesive? Were a lot of them? They're from all different places, so they're not necessarily super cohesive with each other. I mean, they are to a degree, but
They fight each other every now and then. Yeah.
who was the most intimidating group? Or nobody was particularly intimidating?
Nobody was particularly, like.
Because if you're a troublemaker, you wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Were
I
there,
know as far as different rules, the Southsiders probably were more intimidating, and they're more strict, So one of them being like the woods could be around in shower shoes, which are kind of like flip-flops, or some, like gel little plastic shower thing that's not an actual lace up your boots or tennis shoes. And they could sit in the TV room like that and walk around J unit in slippers. But a Southsider, when you're outside of your jail cell and in the TV room, absolutely not. You can't be walking around.
so you're supposed to be ready to fight.
Absolutely, yeah. And so one of the other things is, if a Southsider is fighting in the chow hall with anyone, no matter what, you jump in and help. You don't say, hey, let him go, let it be a fair fight. There's no such thing. You back your person. And if you don't, then you're going to get regulated.
I don't disagree with that.
Where some of the other races, they wouldn't do that. They'll just observe a person getting, why would you be a wood
Why be in a group?
if they're not going to back you up?
Yeah, I don't under it. Yeah.
It's not logical.
So, as a smart person, did you observe all the groups and then decide this seems actually beneficial, and that's why you went?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, what was that process?
So I was in the this J unit, right? And it's a 3-story building. There's maybe like, I think 150 inmates, if I can kind of set in there. So the top floor each race has their own TV room. And in the TV room, you would wear like a headset so that you could watch 3 TVs You know, like, oh, I'm watching the one on the left. I'm watching the one in the middle. So there's no sound, right? So we had the Woods. I was with the Woods. I had my cellmate was, you know, a Vago. And
What's a Vago? It's a motorcycle?
a motorcycle club member. Yep. And so and my cell was literally like perfect as far as its TV room goes and how it functioned. It had 2 TVs, and my cell was like, the door was right here, and like, boom, my chair is here, and I have like a private TV room, where some of the other guys, like the Southsiders, you might have 10 or 15 guys in their TV room. We maybe had like 3 or 4, and my cell was
So
like,
you could damn near watch what you want.
yeah, my cell was like, boom, this is my TV room. And so it's to some degree like bougie, like we got the VIP, we're up in the corner TV room, and nobody else could come in this room. You know, like it's only for us. And one of the Canadian dude was one of them, or Vago. So anyways, there was another dude who was on my tier that was in that TV room with me. And his case was a financial crime, getting people to invest in like, oh, you know, do this various investment, you know, whether it's the stock market and stuff like that. And then he wouldn't invest it. He would take it and spend it and like buy a Ferrari and shit like that. And so he was kind of like a Bernie Madoff. And he came in and he was so corny when he came in. Like when I say that, he was like wearing his shirts like above the knee. Like most of us, we don't wear like, you know, whatever. And then he had, this is like no swagger, let's say. And you could tell. And then before you know it, all of a sudden the socks are pulled up to the knee. And he's got like, you know, he paid for a little more like gangster type shoe, and he's growing the goatee out. He came in with no goatee, and now he's like goatee, socks up, and
Were there any Aryan Brotherhood or hardcore skinhead types there? Were there people with Nazi tattoos?
not at Terminal Island per se.
Okay.
Nothing intense like that, but people that kind of like, you know, still maybe spoke about it in a derogatory way, but not like they were affiliated.
Oh,
you know?
so not much of that.
No. Mm-mm. So this dude that was on my tier, or where my TV room was, we became friends, and he started seeing my artwork. And he had kids on the outside.
And this was Hispanic.
No, white.
Oh, okay.
And he was
this
part
is
of
the
my
stock
TV
room.
room. Yeah,
Okay.
he was part of my TV room. So there was like 3 or 4 of us in this TV room. And he starts to, you know, ask me to do artwork for coming up as Christmas. And hey, he starts to say, I really want to get some artwork for my kids as Christmas presents. Can you make me this? Can you make me that? And he's starting to fucking like act like he's got money on the yard and show pictures of his lifestyle on the outside, you know, like, so people think he's got money, right? And so he starts to hit me up, and I knocked his artwork out relatively quick. And before you know it, he owes me like $1,200, which is a lot in prison. And in prison, the way oftentimes we pay each other, if I was going to hire you, we would get Commissary, which is like grocery store. And you say, buy me $200 in groceries, and I'll deduct $200 from the $1,200, right? So the dude, and somebody would say, make me a store list is how you redeem your money. So if the guy's going to say, hey man, I'll square up, I'll give you 200 right now, he would come to me and say, hey Sin, make me a store list. And I'll be like, okay, bet, you know, give me a 6-pack, give me some hygiene, and he'll buy groceries, and that's how we pay one another. So anyways, he owes me $1,200, and I was like, you know, hey, how much can you do? And he says, make me a store list for $40. And I was like, $40? Like, you're kidding, bro. Like, how do you want to pay? Are you going to like have someone like wire some money on the outside? Or do you have another way of paying people is through stamps? And you could pay somebody hundreds of dollars in stamps. You know, they call them a book.
Stamp is almost like cash.
It is cash.
Yeah.
And so there's bookies in prison, and the bookies hold a lot of stamps. You can even tell people, hey man, I'll get you a store list if you give me, you know, $300 in stamps.
And stamps are what's usually used to buy drugs and all that.
Yeah, or gamble.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of gambling in jail, right?
And then, no, people don't understand too is I had a full staff of workers, and I paid them with stamps and stuff.
Doing what?
One dude, he would clean my dirty clothes. He would take my it's called the net bag, you know, take my net bag. He would go all day, have my clothes, come back with them folded, and I'd say, okay, boom, here's $5, you know.
And who was this guy?
He's just a laundry dude. And those dudes have a good hustle because they pop off to like 10 dudes on Wednesday, bing, 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 bing.
So they're not necessarily weirdos, it's just their hustle.
That's their hustle. And the laundry guys sometimes make a lot of money. You know, if it's like $5 to do your laundry and you do 10 to that day.
That's $50 a lot of money.
And you're doing it every day.
Yeah.
You know, and so they're like, I got you on Tuesday. And you leave your bag at your cell and they pick it up at like 5 a.m. And then I had, if you go to visiting, you want your shoes to look nice. People would like polish your shoes. I would pay for that. I had someone that, again, when you go to the visiting room, you want to be like creased up. People would iron your clothes. I would pay for someone to iron my clothes.
With an iron? They had irons?
You have to check it out. You give them your identification and they'll give you an iron. And in order to get your ID back, you have to return your iron. And then I had it. They had, like, it's called like ice machines, but they're not in your housing unit. So when they open it up, like for 10 minutes every hour, you know, during regular standard, you know, move around time, they call them movements. I paid a dude to go and run and get me ice like every few hours. And I had like a little tiny plastic container and I would keep ice in there. And so when people worked in the kitchen, they would steal all kinds of stuff. You know, like, oh, I got chili peppers, I got onions, I got a pack of cheese, I got whatever, I got tomatoes, you know, and I'll be like, dude, let me get the tomatoes, I want some onions. And I had like an ice chest at all times with like sodas and onions. And so if I'm making a soup, I can chop up some onions and put onions in there. And, you know, and we had microwaves at one point. Sometimes we would even get like raw meat from the kitchen, like, hey, I got chicken patties. And we were even making ceviche, which is like off the fish patties. And those guys, we had a serious hustle with like stealing from the actual warehouse before it made it to the kitchen. Like off-site, plumbers would go there with like plumbing tool things, and they would load on boxes of eggs. Like, oh, I got on 200 boxes of eggs. And they'd go around selling eggs to all the dudes that were trying to get yoked. They were like, I need my protein. So I had all sorts of stuff I would constantly pay to buy. I had people that even would make custom food. Like, hey, this Saturday I'm making burritos. Are you in? I'd be like, yeah, make me 3. And sometimes I would make them and just like give them around. Like, hey, man, I got you a burrito, you know, and just.
Where were you getting money from?
Sometimes I would make art and people would pay me.
How long did it take? Because you didn't really start learning art until you got in there.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get good enough that you could make money? Or simple stuff?
Simple stuff. And then at some point I stopped doing art for inmates, and they started getting pissed because they were like, what do you think, you're fucking too good? Or fuck that guy. They started saying, man, I asked that guy and he doesn't do work for nobody. But leading up to it was, so this the wood owing me the money became a time where we have to now fight.
Okay, and so how long have you been there when this happens?
Oh, man, a couple of years.
Oh, so you were a wood for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But did it mean, like, was there any times when you had duties as a wood, or it didn't really mean much?
No, they didn't really run like that. It was more leisure.
And there was no there was nothing really going
Playing
on.
softball, we're playing pool, fucking shooting pool.
No big, how much fighting is going on, or it's all just about drug debts?
Yeah, not much fight.
If you're not running up drug debts, there's no problems.
Right.
Okay.
And so it became an issue that the dude owed me money. And so we were like gonna fight about it, and we got into it in the TV room a little bit, right? And then I just started telling people like, I can't be around the guy. He's in my TV room, and I can't look him in the eye knowing he fucking owes me the money. And like we're gonna have to like
He owes you $1,200.
yeah, we're gonna have to like throw blows over
And
it.
you haven't had a fight yet.
Not yet. No.
And it's not that you want to fight, but it's kind of like if you let this guy
Yeah, you can't let him take
Yeah.
advantage of you.
Just totally.
And
right.
in the moment, I didn't know that he was doing other things on the yard. And it turned out he was like getting drugs fronted to him. And he owed the Southsiders $5,000.
$5,000. So just like he was a scammer on the outs,
Yep.
he's showing everyone pictures of his cars, but he doesn't have that stuff anymore.
So-
And he's getting drugs on credit.
And this is what he did to like be like somewhat of a chameleon. He was getting meth and giving it to other inmates for free.
Oh, to
So
have like a
brownie
boom.
points.
Ah.
Yeah. So now when it came time for me to like get into an altercation, the other dudes in the TV room were getting free meth and they ran the bill up with them.
Like the Canadians and all, the Canadian guy?
Yeah, more like my Vago.
The Vago. Oh.
Yeah, they were like, they would be up all night, 2 a.m. in the TV room. You can stay up till 2 a.m. in our TV room. That's how our TV room was kind of cool like that, you know? And when it came time to like, dude, this guy, it's coming to the point where someone has to regulate him through the race, or I have to fucking, fight him because this can't continue.
Inappropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, like, when I had this long hallway and my cell and our TV room was at the end of this long hallway, and a Southsider came to my cell and he said, hey, we know so-and-so, you have a problem with him. He owes you money and he owes us money too. Meaning like, probably like the Mexicans that run the show in there, the Southsiders, which are all like gang members that are from Southern California. And they're not like someone from El Salvador. They don't.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
Yep. And so I had to walk through their TV room to get to my cell. So for a couple of years, I would pass by and be like, hey, what up? I know them. And we would play softball. And I was on the White Sox and that was the Dodgers or the Southsiders. So we knew each other through community. And this one dude hits me up and he comes and he starts to say, hey, dude, I heard you because I wanted to move. I was like, I can't be around this dude. I need to move my cell. And he said, I have an open cell. And in federal prison, you have case managers. You can fill out a form and say, hey, I would like to move. Maybe like the guy or whatever. And you could put in to move. And he goes, hey, so if you want, you could, jump in my cell. And you're cool to be in our TV room. And you could run with us.
So he offers.
He came to my cell and I was like, hey, what's up, dude? And he hits me up in the middle of the cell and says, do you want to join the Southsiders? I know fuck this guy. And he starts to say, this dude's going to get fucked up. He wants to check into the shoe. So what people do that for the real world that don't know, this person would run up a tab and they would put in a letter to a mailbox that a guard is going to read saying my life is in danger. And immediately the guards will come pick you up as soon as they get these letters, and they call that like a check-in move. And they already knew he was going to check in or whatever. So I was like, hey man, in the moment I go, I really appreciate that. Like, let me come down to your TV room. Are you guys going to be down there? I want to talk to you. And I wanted more details to like what was this offer exactly, And so I go in there and there's like the shot caller of that floor. There's other guys. There's maybe like 7 or 8 of them. And they were explaining like those dudes don't have your back. They have the other dude's back. And they're like, that's fucked up because he owes us. He owes you. Those dudes should check him. You're not the deal. And all the whites are like backing this.
So the whites had no real good structure. They were just drug addicts.
Not on this particular prison.
On this particular.
Every prison's different.
Yeah, absolutely. It's based on the human beings.
Sure. And so there was the one dude, and I remember he was one of the shot caller dudes was pretty short actually, and he was like I know they're probably in the mafia, right? And so he puts his arms out and goes, man, you're with us. And he goes, no one's going to touch you. He goes, if anyone has an issue, they have an issue with all of us. And in the moment when he told me that, I just felt like, and I told them, I said, wow, that's love. I appreciate that. And so they had 3 TVs because their TV room was bigger. And I go, let me ask you something. Is it a problem if I change the channel? If I'm in here watching TV? And they're like, absolutely not. And then I said, well, where am I going to sit in the chow hall? And they're like, you could either sit with us, or if you want, you could sit with like the independents, like whatever. But
It was pretty easy peasy.
Yep.
Okay.
They said, we know about you. They probably checked on me from the outside.
And you've been there for a couple of years. You're an easy
I played
person.
softball against.
You're a cool guy. Don't cause problems.
Right. And then,
Maybe one day, if you're gonna get back into the game, you're someone good to know. All of that.
yeah, and that people could also see that I had money in prison. So when you ask me, oh, how did you get money? It's not that my family was wealthy, but my
They had enough to send you a little something.
Because people don't understand, and they make this is so wrong, and people are seeing this. They should change their way. Like when a homie, your friend, goes to prison, they don't realize prison is not free.
No.
You have to buy underwear. You have to buy tennis shoes.
I mean, you could be in there living like a homeless person.
Dude, there's people in there that can't even afford shampoo.
Oh, they don't give free shampoo?
No, dude, you have to write a form saying I'm indigent. But you're on your own. The government gives you a pair of boots and one fucking outfit.
And there's barely enough food to live.
Yeah, if you want like groceries, you have to have your family.
If you're not eating commissary, I mean, you're not going to die, obviously, but it's pretty
you might be hungry
unpleasant.
at the end of the night.
Yeah, you are going to be hungry.
Yeah, they serve your meal at like 4 or 5.
No, you are going to be hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your dinner was at 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and you can't take it home.
Yeah, no, you are going to be hungry.
Yeah.
And it's just enough. It's not even like it's...
And sometimes it doesn't taste good, so you're like, I'm not even eating that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he said that to me, like, hey man, that's you could come move in with homeboy, and I was like, wow, that's love. And so I go, you know what? Let me think about it. But I think I'm gonna be with I'm gonna take you guys up on your offer. So I went to one dude, and he was like kind of, I wouldn't say a shot caller, but another dude in our TV room.
About the white.
Yeah. And he was in my TV room. And he was like talking about how we could work it out, me and Buddy. He goes, yeah, maybe he started recommending like burpees as some sort of form,
Oh, that's... So they like the free drugs.
of like punishment.
To pay off, but then you don't get your money.
I don't know if I wasn't still going to get my money, or it was like
You
the
weren't
weirdest
gonna get-
fucking
you-
thing
it was
to
bullshit.
do.
Yeah.
And I came back and told him, I said, hey man, they just hit me up and said, run with them. And he was like, you don't want to do that, bro. That's going to be bad. Oh man. And when I thought about it, like overnight, and I just thought like these dudes have their, stuff together more so than this.
Yeah.
And this is toxic. I felt like my analogy was when you have a car on the streets and you wreck it and you go to the body shop and fix it, it doesn't mean it's going to be back fixed. It's never the same. And I thought, even if we're going to like fight over this, like throw blows, like it's just awkward. I'm not going to live in the same.
Because you had been having a pretty comfortable time.
Oh, I was super comfortable.
And this is all because he just scammed you. It's not anything bad you did.
Exactly.
It's not even about drugs. It's artwork. It's not even like you were dealing drugs. And you're being pretty, as an inmate goes, you're being very straightforward and wholesome, or whatever word you want to use. And now you're in this stupid predicament.
Right. So I eventually tell the Southsiders, let's go. I told dude, let's fill out the form. He has to sign it. We go to the case manager. We're both there, and we're like, yeah, he's from my neighborhood. He's cool. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. They sign off on it, and you pack out and you move.
Did the Vago give a fuck, or?
Not so much, like they did, but didn't. And eventually
Pretended
still would back me, So I guess in the moment when I eventually moved over, initially going to the yard, you have to walk down like this long outdoor hallway, like just a fence, with like a brick building and a chain link fence, to go to what's called the north or south yard if you want to go to the hobby shop if you want to play basketball, if you want to shoot pool, you'd have to, you walk by people. It's a 2-lane fucking transfer. It's like a hallway this big, but it's outdoor with barbed wire, right? Most of the time you pass by people like the homies that are going back to the unit like, hey, what up? You give them a head nod or what's up, all the whites like wouldn't even look at me no more. You know what I mean? It was very much like high school or something, And I was a softball player and I was on the White Sox. So now I'm not on the White Sox, and now
you're on the Dodgers.
I'm on the Dodgers, which was fine. I had fun with the Dodgers. And so then I start to learn the rules of, being a Southsider. And on this particular yard, in the moment, there was maybe one other white dude, like Wedo, and he was like pretty much not even white anymore. Like he had every part of his body, tattooed out. And there was one dude who was black, who was fluent in Spanish, and he was a Southsider. So it was really just maybe an Armenian or so, but other than that, I was like the only white. So it was awkward and originally for the first, little bit. But then after I started playing softball and some of the whites would actually go home and new inmates would come in, they would be like, oh, he's just a Southsider. They didn't really know the backstory.
Remember you as a white.
And so then...
Now, if you had gone to, say you had gotten yourself in some whatever, or you beat someone up, stabbed somebody, and you got sent to a USP, you would have had to tell the Mexicans there, like, or they would have sent...
I would have been like, I'm already a Southsider.
I don't know, would have been fine, probably. Did you have discussions with people or you just knew that's how it would be?
No, I just kind of knew. If I even got transferred, it was like that. I've already made the change.
And there was...
And then even once I was a Southsider, I did Southsider was like 4 years or 5 years or something.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And what was the biggest drama that ever happened there as far as potential violence or nothing really?
Just people...
It's drug debts.
Yeah, drug debts. There was this little room. They had band equipment.
Did they assault chomos?
Yes.
Frequently, or?
Not so much like shanking and stabbing.
Beat them up?
But, I just peed on the chomo's bunk.
Oh. But they wouldn't leave.
What do you mean?
Like the chomo would stay there and just...
Oh, yeah, he just deals with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was an ongoing
And then
thing
they would, like, even one of my bunkies would come back with a ton of commissary.
Oh, and they just rob them.
Rob them. Yeah.
But the chomo was probably happy that that's all that... They might have been somewhere where much worse things were happening. Who knows?
Yeah. Sometimes they, could maybe even not get messed with.
Depending.
Yeah, some people knew their cases, like, oh, that guy's one of the fucking more intense ones. He's rightfully so. He's like a green light.
Because there's a spectrum of those people. Absolutely. There's some where you're like, well, I wouldn't do it and it's bad, but you're not that outraged.
There's I guess, right? But there is like the dude who took it next level and, which is
but there's between a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah, I don't even like to talk. It's just more of a heinous crime.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
So no real big drama and tension. Mm-hmm. Unless you got yourself in something. Did anybody get stabbed?
Like there was a couple times within the Southsider community where two Southsiders beefed and they had to like have it out, or one dude was fucking up and like 4 inmates would punch him from, the head down
but he wouldn't leave.
No, it's a minute 13.
Oh, so nobody really got
113 seconds.
Yeah, nobody really got put off the yard.
Yeah, people get put off, sort of thing, from little fighting, but
well, I mean, like stabbed or assaulted off, not much.
Not too much stabbings on Terminal Island.
And there wasn't much.
There was a dude who brought a lock and a pillowcase to a fight. And we were all watching it. It was funny. So this one, I was telling you, we have a hobby shop, and they have ceramics. You got leathercraft, and myself as a painter. They even had a band equipment with like drums, and there could be like maybe a Memorial Day weekend where they let inmates that know how to play go out to the basketball court and do full-on concerts. So we could have that. And so they had this tiny little like sound room, and it had glass windows, and you could look in, but it had all the sound in there. And I remember 2 dudes were going to fight, and one dude was kind of short and one dude was big. And the little guy fucking had a pillowcase with a lock in there, and he's fucking trying to swing it, and nobody knew he was doing that. And so eventually, like, when they came out, they were like, yo, you weren't supposed to do that. You know, even things with fighting, like, you can't kick them in the face when they're on the ground. You have to let them get back up.
So it was a pretty controlled environment.
Right. You know, and then
what about what was the dynamics with the black inmates?
Wait, real quick, one dude that got regulated because he was doing things that, you know, people were like, dude, you're fucking up, you know, and we're going to beat you up. You're going to take it. And he came back with a black eye. And I was like, why'd you guys hit him in the face? You know, it was supposed to be, and like, fuck that dude. And they like really like, you know, went hard on him, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the dynamics with the black inmates? Did they have, or you didn't interact too much, or?
So, you know, the Southsiders, we have strict rules with not interacting with blacks and stuff like that. And so, not to get into all of what they are, because they do sound racist, you know, but,
but it did keep the trouble down. Did they have blood and crip problems?
You can't, no, they unite.
So that was you got lucky and went to a probably, what percentage of people there were from Southern California? Most of them?
I don't know, because a lot, yeah, for the most part, but it was so strange that I'm from an area we call the South Bay, and nobody was in Terminal Island, I think, but like 1 or 2.
Well, this isn't a crime area.
I guess apparently not.
No, this is a nice suburban area for the not that nobody does anything, but
yeah.
So, but that probably if people were there, were happy to be there. So people didn't want to leave Terminal Island.
No, they did. You could go even to a camp where there's no.
Well, okay, but you'd want to leave for a good reason. Like it wasn't somewhere you wanted to be fighting or getting.
Yeah, some people they want to arrive there. They heard the food's good. They heard it's a cool place. You know. They did have a good food too. So prisons get like a yearly budget, and it's up to like the guards who order the food to order like good food and to situate the meals. And they were pretty good about like ordering and we had there was people on the inside working in the kitchen that were actual like chefs on the street. Like, I work at this pastry shop. And they might bring back like cinnamon rolls and like custom things.
What type of dinners would you have? Some weren't that good, but some were.
Yeah, no.
It was all right.
But every, like even just lunch and it's not always dinners, they're all the same every week. Like Wednesday's chicken patty, you know, or Friday's fish Friday, fucking Monday's hamburger day, you know. But there were certain meals where people were like, they got spaghetti and meatballs today, or are the chicken patties good? And sometimes people would be like all eager, like gossiping, like, what do they got today? I myself, as how I functioned and how I carried myself in prison, I eventually like gave up on the chow hall after a few years of being there.
Oh, so you were buying all your meals?
Yeah. I participated for a while, and then I was like, I'm not even going to like waste my time going there. I don't want to be around fucking more weirdos. You guys can all go do your...
because if you're not, other than chow...
your population.
Other than chow, you're interacting pretty much with who you want to.
Yeah, in your little housing unit.
So it's okay.
Yeah. Like everyone, let's say... And for sure, I wasn't going to breakfast after a while. At first, I was under the impression that this was a mandatory, get your ass to the chow.
No.
And they start calling people at like 6 in the morning, and inmates, hey man, wake up. And I was like, okay. And I'm going, and I'm like, what? Wait, we don't have to get up? I'm like, no, time out, bro. I'm not getting up, bro. Don't wake me up at 6 for a fucking pancake.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
what was the weakest meal? Breakfast?
Yeah, like for sure I would never go. Even like before I stopped going indefinitely.
Yeah.
But after a while, I also looked at it. Another inmate kind of put me up on that. And it was almost like it's less prison-y. You feel like you're not in a
Oh, it's almost like you're just on barracks
I'm on my own time
with your buddies or something.
Yeah, I'm
because
on
when
my-
you're there for years, these people become. And how did you maintain? Like, are jail friends real friends, or you kind of maintain a
there's
little
some, yeah.
some? Did you keep in touch with any of them?
I do.
Still do.
Absolutely. Even a couple Southsiders that like basically said, run with us and we embrace you and we'll look out for you. I still talk to them and I'm really thankful for them in that moment. Some of these dudes like even got into fights on my behalf.
Oh, like what? Tell us about one of those.
Okay, so now I switched over to a new TV room, and there's 3 TVs and maybe like 7 or 10 of us, and we're in multiple areas of the top floor. Like you could be over here, and we all run to the TV at like when we're allowed to go, and so we all kind of have plastic chairs, but we don't have our name on them. Like we didn't take a Sharpie and put, oh, this is Sin's chair, this is so and so's, but you kind of know. When they call it like they just open the yard or the TV rooms, it's after count time, they call it, you're able to go out of your cell. People go running to the thing and I would be like, oh, this is my chair, that's Al's chair, this is Steve's chair. And so a new dude came and I came out to watch TV before they opened it up for chow hall, and he was in my chair and I didn't hit him up like in a rude way. I just kind of like went over to him and I was like, hey bro, he's new, and I go, that's my chair. And he looks me in the face and says, it's my chair now, go sit over there. And my cellmate at the moment, he was like the shot caller.
Oh, your cellies with the shot collar.
Yeah. And I made eye contact with him. And in the moment he gives me like a head nod. He goes, just sit over there for right now, like sort of thing. And I didn't like sweat it in the moment, but it was definitely a not cool situation. So we let us out and I go paint for a few hours in the hobby shop, and I come back for like the end of the night, lock down, go to sleep. And my cellmate goes, hey man, I want you to know that I pulled dude aside. I brought him into a dude's cell and I explained to him, you're invited here. And you're our guest, and he goes, he didn't like it. He didn't like I was white. And he said, but it doesn't matter what he likes.
Right.
It's what I say.
That's right.
And that's what he told me. He goes, so he has to, he goes, he won't be sitting in your chair anymore. And I go, oh man, I appreciate that, because 2 hours earlier, it was like a thing,
Right.
And he squashed it really quick, and I respect and appreciate that he did that on my behalf, like he didn't have to, he did but didn't, you know what I mean? And I like that as a genuine character of a person, because I had already been his cellmate.
And that's one of the people you keep in touch with.
Yeah, and so later on, when they let us out for a count time when you could watch TV, like the next day or something, I wasn't even there. I didn't come out yet. But my cellmate came out and the dude was in my chair. And so you have to have a headset to watch TV. So now my cellmate is also a Mexican mafia.
So they're he's disrespecting him. It's not even about you. He told them don't sit there.
Yeah. Only a few hours ago.
Yeah.
So the way my cellmate came back and explained it to me was, he said, dude, I fucking like motioned to the guy, like, are you testing me? I thought we talked, and the guy was like, all of a sudden, like after the dude was, he takes off his headset and there's nobody else in the room. Are you talking to me? And as soon as he said, are you talking to me? My cellmate said, I picked him up. I grabbed his shirt and I picked him up. He's a pretty big dude. And he threw him like across the room, The guy didn't do anything. He didn't fight back.
Oh, because he knew he wouldn't have been in trouble if he did.
No, dude, you have to fight back.
Oh, even against the shot caller?
Dude, if someone puts hands on you,
Okay.
you can't be a pussy about it, right?
So this guy was like a weird, like you start a fight but then don't want to fight.
He wasn't built for prison. He was like a dude who didn't know anything really about prison. You know what I mean? He was kind of green or...
Oh, was he a Southsider or
He was what's called...
a resident.
He's a resident. Yeah.
Oh, so he was Hispanic from Southern California, but he wasn't like a gang person.
No.
So he didn't really understand
He just arrived.
that this person...
But he felt he had to like stand his ground, maybe because in his mind, he didn't want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
he didn't understand the rule structure.
Right. And he thought in the beginning, let me show my stand my ground sort of shit, which is fine, you know, but to say that, like, look me in the eye and say...
Well, but to stand his ground with you, but then get his hands put on him outside the ground. So what happened after he threw him across the room?
Instead of fighting, he went downstairs to the other Southside TV room on the bottom floor. We were on the third floor. And he proceeds to tell them, hey, man, so-and-so is letting the white boy change the channel. He's letting them fucking sit where they want. And dude put his hands on me. And then the dudes downstairs... There was 2 or 3 of them that were like really big stature dudes, like 6 foot.
But they're all under this guy that you're selling too.
Right. But they all like kind of still like work together. Some floors are different. Like you could be a shot caller.
But they're together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then everyone from the bottom stairs TV floor, they all come upstairs and then they confront them. And even I wasn't even there for this. This is what my cellmate and I heard from...
But didn't they know about you already?
Oh, yeah. No, I was just still in my cell.
Okay.
I didn't even know this, like, transpired. And so they all come upstairs, and my cellie proceeds to tell him, hey, man, I told the dude already, it's fucking Sin's chair. He's invited. He can do that. And he goes, now that he disrespected me, he can no longer be in my TV room. He said he can go down there to that room, he can go that room, or he could go to the north yard, but it's done. And then so the dudes from downstairs, they looked at the dude in the eye, the new guy, and they said, did you hear what he just said? And he said, and it's called, I'm going to take off on him, which means I'm instantly going to punch the dude or whatever. So now this is the ground rules.
Oh, if he sees him in there, he's taking off.
Yeah, so all the dudes came up from downstairs and they had the new guy and they were like, well, why didn't you fight back? And he was at one point even like, I guess my cellie said he was, the new guy was holding my cellie's arms like this, like making sure that maybe he wasn't going to swing on him, but they were and my cellie's like, dude, you don't want none of this. You know, he had already done a lot of time at Pelican Bay and he was an enforcer, you know what I mean? So it's like, he's built different.
Yeah.
And so, the dude was instructed no longer to sit there. And my cellie would, he worked in the kitchen, so he would get up for work at like 4:30 in the morning. They get all the kitchen guys going way before the 6 a.m. breakfast. So he'd go to sleep early. He was asleep at like 9 or 10, and the dude fucking knew it. He started thinking, oh, Sin's fucking bunkie is asleep. I can sneak out into the TV room and dude's not going to know.
So this is a classic example of someone with very poor social skills.
Right.
He's not understanding.
Right.
What was he in for? Don't know.
I forget. Nothing big, though. He only got like a year or 2 years, like nothing, right? And so, anyways, my cellie fucking catches him in the room, like, because he thinks dude's asleep, you know? And he came out for, like, drinking water or some shit and spotted him, and he instantly, like, I actually was in the shower, and I could hear, like, the plastic chairs and, like, thudding. It was, like, 10 o'clock at night or something, you know? And I had just seen my cellie walk by. The showers, you could see the hallway when people walk by. And then I heard all this boom, 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 boom. And I thought for sure, like, is that what I think it is? Because I've already known these sounds before. The thuds of the property, you know, the walls, when 200-pound men are, you know, bouncing off walls and shit. And so I go back from showering, and my bunkie's in there with his shirt fucking, like, half ripped off. Like they were in a full fucking tussle, and he's like scratched up, and I'm like, what's up, bro? And he goes, I took off on that guy. Fuck him. I caught him in there, and I told him, dude, and I fucking, you know, I beat him up. And I was like, no way. And so this became a thing on the yard, even through multiple housing units, because they were like, what are we going to do? Like, who's in the right and who's in the wrong? And they were hearing about it. But
why wouldn't the shot caller have just been in the right?
no, he absolutely was.
Okay.
But people from other units were trying to comprehend.
Oh, okay.
Like who's in the riot? I heard there's fighting.
Yeah.
So and so's up. What's going on?
Yeah.
And they don't always know. But at the end of the day, like, this dude backed me up because they came to me and invited me in. And at the end of the day, he's like a solid stand-up dude who's not going to let a dude that he vouches for,
Get bothered.
get bothered.
All right. Well, anything else exciting from Terminal Island?
The way the drugs function enrolled in there is an interesting thing. And then sports bookies, people playing poker, running up massive debts.
How was that a pretty lucrative for whoever was running it?
So the sports bookies would let people bet on NFL. They bet them on baseball. You could bet on UFC. I was betting on Mayweather.
And they'd use the Las Vegas line.
All the paisas would get sucker ducked. When anytime Mayweather was fighting a paisa, you could be like, hey, I got $40 on Mayweather, and the paisa's going to back his dude. And, so they were, those are the dudes that mainly had most of the cash, like the stamps.
Oh, the paisas?
No, the bookies.
Oh, the bookies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And anyone freak out on drugs or anything?
Yeah. And a few times, there was one dude I think I mentioned earlier in the story, like, he had been up for 2 or 3 days, and then he just started, like, running around. I don't know if he had his shirt off, and it was, like, really out of place. And then he went up to the guard and told him, like, weirdo, like, hallucination type things, And there was one dude who got high, and he was supposed to leave, like, the next day or in a few hours. And he went down there and, like, confessed, like, I'm fucking high. And he was like, fucking, it's like so stupid, dude. And so a lot of people, instead of smoking cannabis incarcerated, they were smoking this shit called K1 and spice.
Or K2.
K2, because it won't come up on a urine test. So even myself, I was smoking spice every day for a minute.
Oh, what? But we always see people flipping out on that. That never had, like, or is that just a bad batch? Or?
No, I can tell you how those people are doing that, and it is possible. So when I say I smoke, I would smoke with like two or three other dudes, right?
And the high is like weed?
Exactly.
Oh.
Except one time a dude had me twisted up, and it got me pissed, but he like goofed on me, and I'll tell you that one. So as far as the spice, we would roll it up in a napkin that we would sometimes put like honey or jelly, and it would kind of like cure it to where it would burn a little slower. Because if you light a napkin, the thing's fucking disintegrated, right? So you put like a syrupy thing on there to like make a stick. And we were putting such a little amount of spice in there, like the size of a toothpick.
So you're supposed to do a very small amount.
Yeah, so we're passing it around for one dude, and he gets like one hit or two hits, like boom, boom. And I watch stuff on like the Vice channel, and I think what dudes are getting twacked out on it is because they're literally taking a bong hit of it. And if you're going to do that, you're probably going to just be like way out, right? Anyways, there was a time where I came back from the yard, and my cellmate, we smoked all the time, and he goes, hey dude, I got this fucking homeboy came by, and I got something for us to smoke after count. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. They passed me some spice, and literally spice is like this. So sometimes cannabis, it takes like not a long time, but it's not instant.
Instant, right.
Dude, this stuff is instant. As soon as you're passing it back, you're high.
Okay.
And I remember this dude gave it to me, and I instantly felt like I've been through so many things in my life that never scared me or never gave me like anxiety,
as far as drugs,
blood pressure, anything. Yeah.
Or just stress.
I could have hundreds of pounds in the car and a cop behind me.
So you're pretty chill. You're not prone to anxiety.
Yeah. And as soon as I hit this intensive like heat flash came over of paranoia.
Oh.
And I was like, where's the guard? Where'd you give me?
Oh, you said, where's the guard? So
Yeah,
it totally took you out of your
normal behavior, because you're not the type of guy that would ask
what
for
did you
guards.
give me? I was like, is this PCP? Like, what's going on? And they were laughing and going, oh, it's just a different one. And I was like, dude. And I jumped in my bunk and I was like, how long does it last? Because normally Spice didn't last that long.
That's the good thing about
30
it.
minutes or something. They're like, oh, it's probably
come and
30
go.
minutes. So I was like, don't mess with me. And I just laid in my bed.
But you were pretty weirded out.
Oh yeah. And it was like this intense, like you felt like this heat too. Like paranoid heat.
But it wasn't doing that to them.
No, it probably did.
But they just were expecting
They
it.
thought it was funny, or they're drug addicts and think it was like another experience, you know? But me,
Because each K2 was different.
yeah.
Because it's all different chemicals.
Yeah.
Well, it ain't a strain. It's a different mix of unknown chemicals.
And then there's times where you get real weed. And there was a time where I had like real weed in my cell, and I was keeping it in my dirty laundry in case my cell got raided. Maybe they wouldn't look into fucking some underwear. You know what I'm saying? But at count time, it totally smelled like a skunk. And I kept thinking, dude, they're going to catch on. Like, this shit smelled so bad, I couldn't get rid of the smell. And I knew they had to have smelt it, but they just didn't know or what, you know? And that week, I was blazing a lot, right? And I ended up, they just tell you, sometimes they'll come call you from the loudspeaker, go to medical, or if you're in the unit, a guard will come and say, hey, on the next move, go to medical. Sometimes you think that's like a piss test. And I've been smoking actual weed for like a week straight, you know, or a few days at least. And I was like, oh, somebody knocked me out, because the whole unit smells like skunk.
Could you have gotten kicked out of Terminal Island for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fairly serious.
Yeah. If a UA, and some of the UAs, you won't come back. Sometimes you will come back, you know, like 30 days, they'll come back. You got a full beard because there's no razors in there.
But drugs, if you get dirty UA, you're...
No, sometimes you come
Oh,
back with
okay.
drugs. Not always.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
Damn.
I had a cellmate who was selling drugs, and they rolled up on us, like all the guards deep, and raided us and stripped us out right there in the moment and took us both to the shoe. And in the moment, you know, he had a cigarette lighter, he had Suboxone, he had like K1. So he had a whole pouch in his underwear. He built an extra pocket, and they stripped me out first. And I didn't have anything. I wasn't selling drugs, you know? Then they say, oh, go stand out here. And then they bring him in and they strip him out. And they take both of us to the shoe. And I don't say anything in the moment. And we get there, they put us both in the same cell. And I'm thinking this, they probably have listening devices in these fucking, when you go to the shoe.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't put us in a separate thing. And once we're there, I'm like, dude, why didn't you say anything in the moment? Like, why am I fucking here? You know, oh, dude, I'm going to tell him, bro, you didn't have nothing to do with it. And I'm like, well, why didn't you fucking say something before we went up here? Like, now, you know what I mean? At least just be like, this is all me, you know what I mean? And so they took us both, and I ended up having to sit in there for like 2 weeks, you know, with him.
So that was about the worst thing that happened to you. So not that bad.
His crime was kind of crazy. He ended up, went to sell some cannabis, and the deal went bad, and they had a shootout, and he shot the dude.
How much time did he have?
I want to say he got like 15 or 10 or something like that, you know?
What was the longest amount of time that people were doing there, or or that test that was finishing up? Oh, but they were medical people.
One of my good bros who eventually got out for COVID, and I was so like kind of upset because I felt like it's such an injustice. He had a 30-year sentence.
For what?
Cocaine. Because he went to trial.
But he wasn't no huge kingpin.
He was
Big,
good,
but he wasn't like... Sure, he didn't sell anywhere near as much as you.
To the one, like, brothers, what's the one?
Border Brothers?
No, some Chicago.
Oh, Ariano Felix. Oh, the Flores twins?
I believe that was probably,
Oh.
yeah, maybe. Out of Chicago.
Yeah,
or something.
Flores twins.
So he got booked in Iowa, and Iowa's really stringent, and he went to trial. If he did a plea, he would have probably got 10.
They gave him 30 years. How much did he do before he...
I think 19.
Long time. All right, Sinister. Thank you.